right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. It's a Sunday night in Pittsburgh, and we're talking sports as we do every single night of the week. Bob Pompeani with you until 11 o'clock at 412-575-2600. On Twitter, it's at KDPomp. Be sure to join us tonight at 11:35. We have the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown with a bunch of Steeler guys who follow this team day in and day out. That would include Ray Fittipaldo, Brian Batko, and Chris Sadamski. They're going to be here talking it with us. We have a lot to get into, not just Steeler related, but also Penguins, Pitt football. What's going on here? Major slides at the end of the year here, and for the Penguins at the beginning of the season, which leads to a lot of questions. But we're here talking about whatever you want to talk about. Again, it's 412-575-2600. Not much action in the AFC North today. That's because the Bengals had a bye, and of course the Steelers and the Browns played on Thursday. I'm sure you want to talk about that, so call and air those opinions right now. And then the Baltimore Ravens have a big one tomorrow at the Chargers. So it's the battle of the hardballs in that one. And Baltimore maybe without Roquan Smith. He's been kind of battling an injury, which he sustained against the Steelers last week. Not sure if he's going to play, but he's a big part of their Baltimore defense. So if he doesn't play, they will certainly miss him. And a guy like Justin Herbert will look to the middle of the field, I think, a little bit more without him in there. But that's a big game for Baltimore. If they should win, they go to 8-4. That's just a half game behind the Steelers, who were losers against Cleveland the other night. And we can talk about that game. There's so many things to talk about. Number one, the 58-yard field goal attempt by Mike Tomlin early in that game. Winds were really wicked at that point. It wasn't snow on the ground, but it was a difficult situation knowing that you would give up the ball pretty much at midfield, and that was no good as he missed it wide to the right. It was a long field goal. Even on a good day, that's not easy, but when the wind was going, that was a curious call, I thought, because normally Mike Tomlin likes to rely on his defense. He could pin somebody deep in their own zone to start the thing off, but instead, Waitman didn't punt until the very end, and then he had to shank one 15 yards. That wasn't a good thing at that point, of course, but there were timeouts taken into the locker room. There was that big call that looked like grounding, a loss of down. Instead, they changed it to illegal touching, which led to a choice between 3rd and 2 or 4th and 7. Mike Tomlin went back and forth. He accepted it, denied it, then accepted it. So it put him back, but he gave him one more down. Instead of 4th down and 2 yards, he gave him 3rd and 7, which meant they had 2 cracks at it if they were going to go for it. And I would assume they would, although I may have been inclined to keep it and decline the penalty and just say, okay, it's 4th down. If you're going to try a field goal, go ahead, because that wouldn't have put you in so much danger. Even if Hopkins made it, then the Steelers would get the ball back knowing a field goal could win the game. But instead, it was Jerry Jeudy who came up with a big pass reception on that 3rd and 7 play, and then you know what happened the rest of the way. So there are a lot of questions about what happens. I'm sure you want to know about Justin Fields. How much work should he get? He got a lot more than I thought he would on this Cleveland game. I thought on a short week they wouldn't unveil that package, not that much at least. He did have a 30-yard run, but he also threw one down the field. A lot of people were wondering if you're going to do that, why not Russell Wilson, who was 13 for 14 in the 4th quarter of that game, and 3rd and 4th quarters, I should say. He was really good in those throws down the field. So bottom line is they did not win a game on Thursday. That's not a surprise. I thought they were going to buck that trend this week, given the fact they were 8-2 and really could have put themselves in a good position with some insulation in that record. Instead now, they got to come on next week and take on the Bengals. You'll see that game at 1 o'clock on KDKA. It is a Cincinnati team that will be very desperate. They're 4-7, although their offense has been outstanding. Now, they have a guy in Jamar Chase who can win the Triple Crown of receiving. That is catches, yardage, and touchdowns. He already has, I think, 12 on the year. And certainly, Joe Burrow has been on fire with 27 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. They have T. Higgins back. They have a good tight end, Mike Gesicki, on defense. I think their defense is better than what they've shown. I really do. They're not great, certainly, but Hendrickson leads the NFL in sacks at last check, so that's not going to be an easy assignment. And again, it's a desperate football team. The Cincinnati Bengals, in many of their games, have been in it until the final gun. They could have won 3 more games based on how close they were, including, you might remember that Kansas City game where they had a 4th and 16 and a pass interference call that I thought was unnecessary to call, and it allowed the Chiefs to win that game. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about, and that includes the Penguins, who are 1-6 in their last 7, kind of spoiled last night with Crosby's 600th career goal. They end up losing to a team that really they have no business losing to at home, 6-1 to Utah. That followed a loss to the Jets on Friday night, and they're just, outscored 10-2 in their last two games. There's a lot that's not working for the Pittsburgh Penguins. 412-575-2600. If you want to chat, this is your time to do it right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, 7 nights a week, Pittsburgh CW. All right, we're back. Our GMC Sierra tweet of the night is the AFC playoff picture. As you can see, Kansas City wins again, barely, but they keep winning. They're 10-1 with the top seed Buffalo. They beat Kansas City last week. They're second at 9-2. Then the Steelers, then Houston, although Houston lost today. The Chargers, don't be surprised if they make a charge. Baltimore, that's a big head-to-head matchup last night. Denver currently is in as Miami, Indy, and Cincinnati are on the outside looking in. So what do you think about the rest of the Steelers' schedule, and also what do you think about Thursday night? Let me know. 412-575-2600, beginning with James in Whitehall, who's our first caller. Hey, James.
Hey, Bob, thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, but set aside all the inconsistencies that the Steelers you just mentioned, but who is ultimately responsible for benign play calling on a routine basis for Steelers games?
Well, it's Arthur Smith who makes the offensive calls. In the last few games, it's looked more like a Matt Canada work, they've run the ball an awful lot on predictable rundown. I just think Russell Wilson has shown me that he can be very good down the field, especially later in games. I would work on increasing the number of passes they have in this offense, too. And I wouldn't just rely on the run game and try to set it up slowly. I would come out some days, change it up, and go down the field a lot. And I haven't seen that yet. It seems like it's only on necessary downs. I would like to see more passing, at least for a little bit, to see. And listen, if they go to Cincinnati, they're going to have to pass the ball and make points because Joe Burrow is. They've been scoring at an awful lot of offensive rate of scoring, and the Steelers are going to have to keep pace. So the best thing to do is have Russell Wilson cook, as they say. Let's go to Jim in Dormont. Hello, Jim. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for taking my call, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to get your take on the offensive line. I think one of the bigger things that they're having a problem with is up front with converting first downs, and in the red zone also converting and blocking and open up those holes for the running backs and protect them for passing. Wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's a team effort there. That red zone is a problem as far as coming up with touchdowns down there. For some reason, it's just not worked on a regular basis. So they've tried different things. As far as the O-line, they've had a lot of injuries. I think people forget that. 3 of their starters are out for the year. That happened early in the season, and I think guys like Zach Frazier, he's done very well, although in this last game I thought he got pushed around a little bit. I thought Mason McCormick is a very good young player as well. I think, Myles Garrett had his way with Dan Moore quite a bit, and, Garrett's a tough guy. You need to chip him a little bit as well. So it was just one of those nights. But overall, I think they've been okay. They want to, they do okay in the run blocking. The pass protection sometimes can be a problem. We saw a sack on that 58-yard field goal. It was 3rd and 3. They lost 8 yards. Russell Wilson took a sack, and that put it back to 58 yards. So untimely sacks have been a problem as well. But overall, those young guys are doing the best they can, given it's their first year on the job. Let's go to Bill in Cranberry. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Hey, Bob, thank you for taking the call.
Anytime.
I was wondering, have the Steelers noticed on the X that Jermaine Pratt from the Bengals has guaranteed the Steelers will lose to the Bengals?
Well, good for him for doing that, because that should wake the Steelers up. If they aren't mad enough at what happened in Cleveland, they should be mad to hear that. But that also goes in line with what George Pickens said after the game the other night when he said the Cleveland Browns aren't a good football team. They aren't. I don't know if it's necessary to say that kind of stuff. I really don't. They just beat you, okay? You can blame the elements all you want, but that was the wrong time to do that kind of stuff. And they're going to play each other in 2 weeks. That's going to be fresh on their mind. So I'm just not a big fan. I'm old school that way. I don't want to hear anyone chirp about another team, especially after that team just beat you pretty good. Let's go back to the lines. We got Mike in Bethel Park. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Great, Bob. Hey, just curious. I don't know when the Steelers went to Cleveland. I understand they take a bus always, but given that hard-fought game on Monday with the short week, do you think they would have been better off flying up to Cleveland?
No, by the time you get to the airport and do everything you got to do there, it's about the same amount of time. So no, it only takes a couple of hours. They have a nice big bus. They get there, and they went the day before. They had night meetings, and that's never an issue, and that's not a reason why they lost that game. The thing is, the same applies to both teams. Both teams played on Sunday. Both teams had a short week. So, bottom line is, for whatever reason, they just do not do well. They're good on primetime Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, not so much. The only difference is a smaller week. And they have one of those coming up against Kansas City because they'll play Saturday in Philadelphia, only to follow 3 days later with the Chiefs here on Christmas Day. So that will be a tough 2-game stretch. Bill in Robinson Township joins us right now. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Season ticket holder for Pitt Panthers. Very, very disappointed the way the season's going. But I have one question, and I'm going to hang up and let you answer. The last home game I went to, I didn't watch a game yesterday, but the last home game I went to, every time that the offense come out on the field in a huddle, the offensive line was not in the huddle. So is there a reason for that? Thank you.
I'd have to ask. I don't know if there's a reason for that. Or sometimes you see different alignments, people coming up doing different things at the line of scrimmage. But as far as huddles, I wouldn't know. All I know is that they are completely self-destructing. There have been a lot of bad performances. Started with SMU. That was a high-profile game, and they didn't show up for that one. And I thought it, went back to the previous week. They were not very good against Cal, even though they ended up winning that game, mostly defensively. But that was a bad game. The Virginia loss was really hurtful for them. And then they followed that up. Clemson, they could have won that game. They played better in it. I thought Nate Yarnell did a pretty good job. And then yesterday just was not even a close. This program has been what it is over the past several years. However you arrive at 7-4, they have been a 7-win team, 6-win team, sometimes 8. And it's just the same stuff over and over again. And quite frankly, 7-0, looking back now, you'd have to say was a little bit fortunate because there were 2 games where they came from behind to win, and they were in position to lose both. That would be the West Virginia game and the Cincinnati game. So maybe that was just, kind of fool's gold, that 7-0 start, because 7-4 feels like reality, and they have another tough one at Boston College coming up here before their bowl game. So, hopefully they won't go 7-6, but if they do, that would be a colossal collapse. Let's go out to Dave in Charleroi. Hey, Dave, how are you tonight?
Bob, do you really think that Russell Wilson's the answer at quarterback?
Well, are you answering that for now or for in the future? Okay, well, I don't know what you meant by that, if you meant future or present. For now, yes, I do. I look at the stats in the third and fourth quarter from the other game. He was 13 of 14, 152 passer rating. He had a touchdown pass, a beautiful throw to Austin. I just think, there's a lot of checkdowns. What I will say is this. The middle of the field, I've been harping on this for the whole season, but it is, if you look at the throwing charts that you see on some of these websites, you will see that the middle of the field is oftentimes ignored. There are a lot of checkdowns, and those are okay. But if you do a steady diet of them, I don't think they work as well as if you use them infrequently. They need to do the middle of the field. They had plays with Darnell Washington that were successful, one with Freiermuth. I want to see wide receivers do shallow and deep slants. Get people moving in that defense to create other openings. I haven't seen enough of it. And checkdowns are a big part of what they have done so far. And again, there's nothing wrong with relying on Jaylen Warren to get his legs cranking and turn a 5-yard pass into a 15-yard pass. But a steady diet of it, I think, sometimes backfires. Back to the lines we go. Greg in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Bob. I wonder where's Mike Williams, and I predict if Coach Tomlin keeps it up like this, the Steelers end up 9-8.
Well, 9-8 would be a huge disappointment. That's one more win the rest of the way. But it is going to be a tough schedule. Like I said, desperation Bengals are up next, and then Cleveland, a rematch. It won't get any easier. So, a good question about Vince Williams. I don't know what did I say, Vince Williams. I saw him last night. He was working with us in the broadcast booth for the Pine-Richland game. Mike Williams. Mike Williams is a guy who came here to be a difference maker, or at least help be a number 2 kind of wide receiver. And immediately in Washington, he made that 43-yard touchdown to win the game. And since then, he hasn't been targeted, which I do not understand. He says he's up to speed with it all. I'd like to get him involved. Why wouldn't you want to get him involved? He's a big receiver, 6'3", 6'4". Those kind of guys are very important, and he has pretty good hands. I remember his days in the Chargers system. He was a very good player there. So he fell out of favor in New York, but who hasn't these days with Aaron Rodgers around? It's a big week for Pitt basketball. They lost tonight to a ranked team in Wisconsin. Coming up next, it's Ohio State. Now, they played a really good game tonight. We're going to show you some of those highlights at 11 o'clock against Wisconsin down at the Greenbrier Classic. But second half, Wisconsin kind of dominated there and overcame a 13-point Pitt advantage to win that game. So, you know, for that team, every now and then, it's a good learning experience. I think Pitt is going to be very talented and certainly a factor in the ACC. In the meantime, join us tonight, right after the late news, 11:35 KDKA-4, the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. We got Brian Batko, Ray Fittipaldo, as well as Chris Adamski, all talking sports in Pittsburgh, and a lot to get into tonight. That's going to do it for us. I'm Bob Pompeani. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back at you tomorrow night, 10:35, same time. So call, air your opinions on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Good night.